Hey guys, welcome to the Dream Lab. We're going to get into another dream. Got our dream journal here. Fun having a little dream journal that keeps on showing up with dreams from other people. Let's see if there's a good one for us to take a look at today. Oh, well, here's one that's interesting. So this actually comes from Susan Williams. She sent in this dream. Let's see what it says. So I was at my mom's house, my childhood home. So the place where she grew up with, but she's with her granddaughter. Always interesting when you have something like this in a dream. So they're in the home they grew up with, but they're with somebody from their current season. When they were growing up, they didn't have granddaughter yet. So that's something to pay attention to because it tells you something about the metaphor that you're going to find there in the dream. So at my mom's house, the childhood home where I grew up with my granddaughter, Madison, because Madison was sick, so she was home from school. Now, in waking life, Madison is 9 years old. She lets us know that here in the dream. She got to feeling better, so we went out into the backyard to play. I was wearing a red nightgown. My ex-husband, David, was there. He and one of my friends from church, Terry Williams, went next door and they began removing shelves from Terry's shed. Now, he doesn't live next door and probably didn't even know the dreamer when she was in her childhood. But dreams are fun, the dream logic. But again, these are all, they become metaphor when they're not the way that they are in waking life. So something important. We know Madison, being 9 years old, she actually is 9 years old in waking life. So that doesn't mean anything. You can't do anything with 9. But Terry living next door when he doesn't actually live next door, now that we've got to take a look at. All right. So they began removing shelves from Terry's shed so that David could use the lumber to build shelves. So this is her ex-husband. I could see through the picket fence what they were doing. Then a few raggedly dressed members of the Texas Tech band came out of the back door and marched through the backyard playing their instruments and out the side gate as I stood in the back porch and waved as they went by. Then I could see that my granddaughter was on the corner, two houses down the street. So she's out on the corner, no longer in the backyard, but the dreamer's in the dark backyard, but she can see her granddaughter, who's now on the corner in the front yard of another house separately. Again, dream logic is fun. By Sue Rogers' house. Now, Sue Roger actually lived there when the dreamer was a child. So there's some connection, again, to what it was like in her childhood. Meeting some friends from school. So her granddaughter was meeting some friends from school. They hugged and then they sat down on the corner. And the dreamer recognized one of her granddaughter's friends. And that's the end of the dream. All right, so we've got a few really interesting pieces here. We've got a connection. We've got childhood home. We've got ex-husband. We have a current church member. We've got a current granddaughter. We've got a Texas Tech band. All of these little pieces. What I want you to do is go ahead and pause this video at this point in time. I want you to come up with a title for this dream. What would you call this one? And then figure out who or what is the focus of the dream. What are the sub-focuses? Now, I just gave you some clues, so that'll help you out a little bit. And what are the details that go with each of those sub-focuses? Then write out a dream interpretation. Once you have your interpretation, go ahead and start the video again, and we'll let you know what I got here in the lab. So we'll talk to you here in a few minutes. So welcome back. Have you had a chance to go through the dream? Hopefully you actually paused the video and kind of work through it, because that's where you're going to get the most benefit from these videos. What are you going to call this? We could use kind of the more traditional kind of a title or something that's a little bit funny. But there's a little phrase pops through my head, blast from the past. Partially because I've already started interpreting the dream and I've got a feel for it. So whatever your title is, we're going to start with that. And then what is our focus? In this particular dream, it's the dreamer The dreamer that was with her granddaughter, the dreamer that goes out into the backyard with her granddaughter, the dreamer that is watching her ex-husband and her friend take down the shelves. And then it's the dreamer that sees the Texas Tech band and they wave at, and it was the dreamer that then is noticing her granddaughter. So this dream is actually about the dreamer. Now, sub-focuses. The first kind of big sub-focus is actually the mother's house. Now, some of you might have put the granddaughter, and the granddaughter is a sub-focus or an important detail, but it actually is more related to the mother's house. So the mother's house is really key. Here's a couple different things. She said it was a house that she grew up in, her childhood home. When you find a childhood home in a dream, usually what that's talking about is this is a situation that started in their lives from childhood. It's something that is generational, especially when you see other generations that are connected. Now, here's an interesting thing in this dream, because a lot of times somebody will have a dream about being at their grandparents' house or at their parents' house, and their parents or their grandparents are there. This, we don't have that. The granddaughter is there, but the granddaughter is the current age. So it's something that started in the dreamer's life at childhood. And that situation, she's starting to see how it's affecting the next generation, her granddaughter, right? So some things that she's perceiving, she's seeing her granddaughter's sick, some behaviors or some situations or circumstances, not necessarily that the granddaughter is doing it. Maybe it's happening to the granddaughter. It doesn't actually say, because it's not talking about activity in the dream. So you want to be careful how you would say that. But the granddaughter is sick. The granddaughter is affected by something. And because the granddaughter is sick, they're visiting the past, her childhood home. And they go out the back door, which is another picture of past. So the dynamics that the dreamer is seeing in her family are causing her to look at the past. Now, some of those past dynamics that the dreamer sees. So when she goes out into the backyard, then the things that she sees are talking about things of history, things from the past that she's perceiving. One of those things that she sees is the ex-husband and her friend from church, Terry, that are going next door. Now, remember, when she was talking about the dream, she said that Terry from church doesn't actually live next door to her or to her mom's house, her childhood home. So this is talking about a relational connection where the things that went on in her personal life, ex-husband, and the things that are going on in some of the relationships in the church, that there's a connection. They actually have the same building blocks. That some of the interactions and dynamics, the shelves that were being taken apart there to be used in the ex-husband, that there's a connection between those dynamics, between the situations that happen with the ex-husband and some of the situations that are happening in the church. So she's seeing how some of these dynamics have played out in her life. Now, the Texas Tech band, this is the part where I actually, as of right now, as these words are coming out of my mouth, I don't know what to do with this. I am praying that the revelation would come while I start talking about it. So you have the idea of a marching band. One of the questions that I have, which we don't have an opportunity to ask the dreamer, did they actually go to Texas Tech? Is there a connection there? Is it related? Oh yeah, I went to Texas Tech and my mom went to Texas Tech and my daughter went to Texas Tech, or my son or whoever this granddaughter came from. That all of a sudden there would be something that would tie that in, that would make sense. Again, a past thing. But either way, Texas Tech is a university, it's a college. So it's talking about a time, a season. So we have the older season, or excuse me, the older season, childhood home. But then we go out into the backyard and we see something newer, ex-husband, current person in church. Then we see something a little bit older, Texas Tech. And so you're seeing these dynamics, so different dynamics. Now, there's they're just marching by and they wave, but they're ragged outfits. They're not dressed well. They're not well taken care of. They're not well presented. That might be a way of saying it. Now, a lot of times clothing can represent the uniform or what you're presenting, the gifts that someone has, how they present themselves. But things not being taken care of, not being kept up well, there might be something related to that. So maybe there was a situation, this is pointing to something in her college years, in the dreamer's college years, that's connected to that. Now, both of these, we got a relational issue. You've got an ex-husband, you've got a friend from church, and then the next thing that happens in the dream is she sees her granddaughter out a couple houses down on the corner, meeting with some friends that she sees. So this is, again, so there's a relational connection. This dream is talking about some relational dynamics that have been going on in the dreamer's family. There are things that started in her childhood, things that played themselves out in her marriage with her ex-husband, and also in some of her church life. And actually, she saw some of the difficulties or the negative portions of that even in her college years. And she's seeing those patterns playing themselves out in her family right now. That's what the dream is talking about. So now we need just a little bit of application. What do you do with this? So, Susan, when you're hearing this, one of the things that you want to do is you want to start taking a look at your life, start taking a look specifically at relational dynamics and pay attention to those things. What are the patterns that you can see? What are the patterns that you can see some similarities between what happened in your marriage, what happened in some of your church relationships? And I'm not sure if Terry is specifically about Terry or if Terry just represents someone from current church life, maybe relational contexts, that there's something there. And how that relates to some of the stuff that happened during your college years, specifically relationally. What is it that the Lord is pointing out? As you find those things, begin to deal with them in a generational way. So we have generational repentance, we have generational healing that can happen where we deal with situations, because the things that happen to the parents, the sins, and this may not be an outright sin like murder, but there could be some unhealthy relational dynamics that are being talked about. So they can get visited down in the family line. Ask the Lord to reveal what those are. Begin to repent of them in your own life, and then begin to ask the Lord to cleanse your bloodline so that those things do not get handed down to further generations. And specifically, be praying for your granddaughter, Madison. I don't know if that's your only granddaughter. If it is, then any of your grandchildren. But if you have more than one, specifically praying for her, praying for that particular family and how it affected, and asking the Lord to come in and bring healing and redemption to those dynamics. So you've got a dream, you've got an interpretation, you've got an application. In the middle there, I threw in how I would interpret that dream. That was your proclamation. That's all four of the aspects of a prophetic word in this example that we just used. Now, hopefully you've learned a little something about how to think about different elements in dreams and how that can apply. What parts of that dream did you get right? What parts of that dream did you miss? How are you going to take a look at that? What did you see in there that maybe that I missed in this dream? Put it in the comments. Would love to hear what you guys are getting out of this and how this is helping you to grow in your ability to interpret dreams. So thanks so much for joining us here on the Dream Lab. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep dreaming.